Welcome to Life by Design, episode 408. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards. On today's episode, we cover how to heal your gut. You're going to hear content from another resource coming in, sharing this with you. It was a great episode, so it made sense to put it on the Life by Design podcast. Enjoy today's episode of Life by Design. I don't want to say a complicated topic today, but an important topic. There could be a huge rabbit hole that you can go down with this conversation, how to heal the gut, why to heal the gut, how this plays a role. Hey, Gail Garnett, how it plays a role in, well, if you listen to some of the top researchers in gut health, how essentially a damaged gut plays a role in just about everything. And I'll walk you through what the connection is. We'll talk about what you can do in order to improve this. But there's two kind of basic places to start. Number one is that the end, I'll give you the end first. The end is that we need to support the development of healthy gut bacteria. And then on the flip side of that, we need to avoid creating a leaky gut. Hey, Carol. And so let's talk a little bit about these. And, if we dig into this, how do you know that, you're dealing with a leaky gut? Or how do you know that you're dealing with a damaged gut? Well, there's some signs of gut damage. Now, some of the signs are pretty obvious, and some of the signs are more subtle. So, obvious ones would be any type of chronic digestive upset. So, for a lot of people, they have chronic conditions in the digestive system: diarrhea, constipation, bloating. I think it's normal to some degree as an adaptation for people to go through that. Some days, but to have that on a chronic basis over and over and over and over and over and over again. So that's one particular possibility. Number two is there's a relationship between obesity and even being overweight and gut health. Now, chicken or the egg, hard to say, but there's research that's looking into this. If you're overweight or classified in the obese category, there's a pretty darn good chance that you also have significant damage to the gut. Okay? And that can be a starting point to help and improve. Allergies. If you look at the top researcher in intestinal permeability, which is just one area of looking at the gut, this Dr. Fasano, who's published hundreds of peer-reviewed research articles, believes that damage to the gut or a leaky gut is a preliminary factor to essentially every single allergy and specifically autoimmune disorder. So we'll come back and we'll talk about that and how that happens, and again, how to repair this stuff. And then you can look at things like psoriasis, eczema, skin conditions, again, the damage to the gut, creating an autoimmune response. And for a lot of people, I always call it collateral damage, whether it be, neck pain, headache, sciatica, eczema, immobility, diabetes type 2, all these things that people think are their problems are not the real problem. They're the collateral damage. And so getting back to the core, obviously eating real food, training your body, being physically active, sleeping, these all play a big role in the gut. But one of the big reasons that we need to heal the gut is if we get down to this base at the core of it is keeping the intestine and the gut non-permeable. Now, the gut wall is selectively permeable, meaning that certain things can get through and certain things don't get through. The problem is there are certain things that stimulate the release of a specific chemical, and that chemical can loosen we'll call the tight junctions in the intestines. So if these are the cells in the intestines and they have tight junctions, they allow certain things through, but they're selective about it. But certain foods, stress, antibiotic use, and other factors can cause the release of this chemical called zonulin, and zonulin actually loosens up the junctions and it makes it more permeable. And when it becomes more permeable, certain foods, undigested particles will actually pass through the intestinal wall and they'll get into the bloodstream. When they get into the bloodstream, your body's really smart. And so what your body does is it fights and attacks them. And that's essentially the basis of autoimmunity. So you'll look at all these conditions that have autoimmunity in their core. Even if you look at some of the research with gut and depression, gut and mental health. And I think, again, for most people, you wouldn't make that link automatically. But there's interesting research and a correlation between groups of people who have, depression. In the same time, if you look in the research, a higher propensity to have digestive difficulties. So the relationship between this autoimmune response and how it's affecting the brain and how it's affecting, again, our emotional state, depression. Even I've seen research on gut permeability and schizophrenia, just really things that the general layperson wouldn't really think about. And so the question is, how do we go about healing the gut and getting into this? A couple things. Stress is a big player. The lack of exposure to just bacteria in general, the lack of exposure to dirt. When we grew up, we essentially ate dirt, and we're creating, maybe more than ever right now we all know what's happening. We're trying to create a sterile environment where we have no exposure to bacteria or viruses, thinking that somehow living in a bubble is going to actually be the solution to the problem. And it's not. And just use gut health as an example here. You need to get some dirt. If we go back to the first dose of bacteria that really develops our gut, and that is having a normal vaginal birth. So we see C-section rates going up and up and up and up. And again, I'll say it just so people don't think I'm, cold-hearted. There's a time and a place, and if there's an emergency, of course, then that's what medical care is for. But we're seeing the rates going up and up, far greater than any other type of society, Canada, United States, more so than other countries. And we call it eco-immunonutrition, meaning that when you pass through the vaginal canal, you get your first dose of bacteria. And so without that, you're not actually populating the gut. And so right from day one, we're affecting the way that the gut is developing. And then, of course, we're carrying throughout our lifetime with stress, with rounds of antibiotics. And so not only are we affecting our body by suppressing symptoms, but we're also damaging the gut in that process. So if we go through, how do we fix this? Number one, we've got to look at the food that we're eating. So refined carbohydrates. When you're eating refined carbohydrates, you essentially are feeding the gut bacteria that you don't want to feed. You're enhancing the growth of the bacteria in your gut that you don't want to grow. And as bacteria grow, what they do is they release toxins or endotoxins, and that's part of what is creating the digestive and difficulties and signs of difficulty inside the gut. And so refined carbohydrates is one. I think gluten is one that people always bring up. This idea of being gluten-free, it's gotten a bad rap because people jump on this bandwagon of, I'm gluten-free. And I'm not sure they really understand why they're gluten-free. Gluten is a protein, and a portion of the gluten protein is called gliadin. And that protein, what it does is stimulates the hormone or chemical I talked about earlier called zonulin, all these complex names. Basically, what it does is it loosens the junctions. And so for some people, they can consume food that has gluten or that protein in it, and it doesn't seem to cause a major problem, although it may cause some sensitivity that they're not even aware of because it still is having that effect. But for some people, they're going to be more sensitive to it, and it's going to cause an even bigger problem. So refined carbohydrates, gluten. Now, side note, if you're eating by design and you're eating real food, think about this. You are naturally by default gluten-free, because when you eat food that is, chicken, beef, steak, same thing, pork, eggs, vegetables, good fats. When you're eating that way, you're not eating foods that are made from wheat. So it's not about being wheat-free or gluten-free. It's about eating real food that has a high level of nutrient density. And it just so happens that when you do that, you have less food toxicity. And that's really the main point, is to reduce the food toxicity and reduce the chances of developing a leaky gut or permeability while we're supporting healthy gut bacteria. So removing refined carbohydrates, removing gluten-containing foods, which is, again, a low nutrient density food anyway with potential for food toxicity. And then on the flip side, it's feeding the gut. So fermentable fibers, basically fibers that the gut bacteria that we want to develop can eat. Okay, things like onions, believe it or not, are a fantastic source of fermentable fibers. Asparagus is a great source of fermentable fibers. Artichoke is a great source of fermentable fibers. Another one is resistant starch. So resistant starch is different from other starches where the body can't break it down. So the body can't break it down, but what it can do is it can actually feed the bacteria. And a good source of resistant starch would be potato starch. So if you've ever cooked with potato starch, oddly enough, cooled potatoes. So if you cook a potato and then it cools, like a potato salad, that has a lot of resistant starch. Unripened bananas, plantains, those would all be sources to develop the gut. Bone broth is a great one that we use in our house. So we just started doing our own bone broth. Maybe next week I'll share the recipe inside the group. Super easy, do it in the slow cooker. Tastes fantastic. And, a cup or two of that is going to give you a ton of gelatin. It's going to give you, a ton of gelatin, a ton of the healing and repair nutrients that we need to rebuild the gut and the skin. So when we eat protein, which is great, a lot of people focus on the lean portions of the protein. And when we do, we get a we get a high amount of a certain type of amino acid, which is part of the protein, and a lower amount of the other one. And that imbalance can actually be problematic. And so we want to eat the animals tip to tail, and that's the ideal. And so one great way to do it, unless you want to eat, weird kind of pieces of the animal, then your better bet is to do some bone broths, because that way you're getting all the gelatin, all the really awesome collagen, you're getting the hydrochloric acid, all kinds of great things that come from those portions. We're cooking it down and you're able to drink it and add that in a really easy and simple way. The other ones that I think would be valuable for people, getting sleep, right? That heals the gut. Obviously, exercise and resistance training, that has a role in the gut. And then for those people who are under biostructural care, you already know that anything to do with the nervous system is connected to everything else. And so stress on the nervous system via subluxation is going to have an effect on the gut. And it's one of the reasons why you can see the success while plastered with people whose, number one or two primary change or improvement was digestive function and digestive health. So lots there today, guys. A couple main takeaways. Number one, you have to support healthy gut bacteria, and you have to remove foods and activities and experiences that are going to lead to a leaky gut or intestinal permeability, and going to lead to or be a precursor to digestive problems, autoimmune problems. And just recognize that the damage to the gut goes far beyond just having an upset stomach. It goes far beyond just feeling like, you have a digestive problem. It's bigger than that. It plays an effect on the brain, on all the organ systems, on our not just our bodies, day-to-day health, but the energy we have. And so really, the blueprint's always the same. I always sound like a broken record here, but eating by design, eating real food, focusing on high-quality proteins, tip to tail, so add the bone broth in, better sleep patterns, manage your stress, neurological health, resistance training, exercise, water. Test out a couple cool things like resistant starch. Cook a potato, cool it. That's a great way to do it. Plantains, as I said, another great way to do it. And again, any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll come back and swing around next week, or I'll get notified and I'll come right here and I'll answer them for you. Until next week, guys, make it a great day.